The school sat at the very edge of the road, right where the streetlights stopped working. Everyone in town knew to avoid it. But for three friends with phones and too much confidence, the open gate looked like an invitation. Stepping onto the grounds changed the air. There was no wind, no sound of distant traffic. Even their own footsteps felt heavy and flat, as if the walls were swallowing the sound before it could even echo. Inside the first classroom, the desks were arranged in perfect rows, with every chair tucked in tight. While thick dust layered the floor and windows, the desks themselves were unnaturally clean. Not a single smudge or speck of grit on the wood. Faint, ghostly chalk marks stood out against the cracked slate of the blackboard. It was a single sentence: "Don't answer when your name is called." The building felt like an ordinary ruin, quiet and still, right up until they walked deep enough into the hallway that the front door was no longer in sight. A sudden, sharp ring violently shook the air as a rusted industrial iron school bell vibrated against the decaying brick. Then, the jagged, distorted crackle of the overhead speakers filled the hall. "Class is starting," the voice said. "Attendance will be taken." As they turned to run, the hallway seemed to stretch. Doors that were previously closed now stood open, revealing rows of figures sitting in the dark, staring forward without moving. These figures had no eyes and no mouths, just smooth, blank skin where a face should be. At the front of the room, a towering, distorted shape that barely resembled a human stood over the teacher's desk. The roll call began. When the teacher reached Samir's name, his mouth opened on its own. He tried to fight it, but his lungs forced the air out, and his own voice betrayed him. "Present." Samir was still standing there, but the light in his eyes had gone flat. His free will was gone, severed by a simple verbal confirmation. They managed to drag Samir out of the school and back into town, but he wasn't really there. He moved like a puppet, his responses becoming short, hollow, and devoid of any human inflection. The safety of the narrator's bedroom offered no protection. That night, the distant, rhythmic tolling of the school bell began to echo from inside the walls of his own house. By morning, a thick layer of white chalk dust had settled over the furniture. On the wall above his bed, 5 words were scrawled in heavy, jagged strokes. "You left class early." When he went to check on Samir, he found his friend sitting perfectly upright on a kitchen chair, staring at the wall. Samir didn't blink or turn his head. He was positioned exactly as if he were back in a classroom. The physical walls of the school were just a starting point. Once the attendance sheet is marked, the environment adapts to the protocol, pulling the world into the school's logic. The list continued to shorten. During a phone call that evening, Ravi's voice suddenly cut out. When the narrator spoke his name, a different, mechanical sound came through the receiver, whispering, "Present." By morning, Ravi had vanished from the memory of everyone who knew him. To the town, there were never 3 friends, only one. The community's memory sealed the gap completely. The final protagonist was left in total isolation. Demands appeared on his bathroom mirror, on his phone screen, a relentless series of reminders that class was still in session and his seat was empty. The entity uses this social erasure to ensure there is nowhere left to hide. Without friends, family, or a record of existence, the only place that still recognizes him is the classroom. The moment he sat down in that familiar desk and whispered the word, "Present," his body went cold. The part of his mind that wanted to run simply shut off, replaced by a heavy, numbing stillness. The thought of the exit became impossible to hold on to. It felt like trying to remember a dream that was already fading, replaced by the overwhelming reality of the desk and the floor. Samir and Ravi sat nearby, their expressions frozen in a permanent empty smile. They were still conscious, but they were essentially paused, their personalities degrading into the same blank, smooth surfaces as the others. The bell rang again, but nobody stood up. This eraser moves across the board in a perpetual circle, clearing the past to make room for the same lesson, repeated over and over. The process is a total overwriting of the self. The school transforms its victims into a collective, uniform mass, where every individual voice is eventually tuned to the same frequency. The heavy front doors creaked open again. 3 new people stepped into the hallway, their flashlights cutting through the dust, looking for a thrill in an abandoned building. The narrator tried to scream, to tell them to turn around before the gate shut, but the only sound he could produce was the one the system demanded. You're late. Outside, the school remains a rotting shell, but inside, every chair is occupied. Time within these walls is a closed loop, ensuring the attendance is always full and the lesson never ends. In a quiet corner of the building, there is a desk with a single piece of white chalk waiting. It's a space held open specifically for you. The final horror is the absolute surrender to the system. Once you take your seat and answer the call, you aren't just in the school, you are part of it.